Welcome back. Today's video is going to be about eyeshadow palettes that I think could be better. These are eyeshadow palettes I really do like and enjoy. However, there's just one, maybe two things that I think if were changed, I think they would make the palettes a lot better. I think they just slightly missed the mark in one or two ways. Now, obviously these are just my opinions, and I'm sure that there are some people who think these palettes are perfect, but you know, everybody has different tastes and different preferences. And yeah, a lot of these I've actually mentioned before when I've talked about these eyeshadow palettes, probably in review videos or whatever else. But yeah, I just thought that I would do this. And honestly, this is also a way for me to realize that if there are certain things I don't like about a palette or a product in general, I really just shouldn't buy it. And I've just kind of learned my preferences over time, you know. So let us know also what you think of these palettes, or palettes that you think could be better, or ones that you do think are perfect. I'm also curious about that, and let's get started. The first one, I know that I've talked about this a multitude of times on my channel, and that is the Jaclyn Morphe palette. Now, this palette, I actually love the quality of these eyeshadows. These are some of the easiest mattes to blend, and the shimmers are beautiful. I really love the formula, and I actually really do like the color selection. Now, I've talked about before, I don't like ginormous palettes, and that's my number one issue with this palette. And I think that they could have just cut down a bunch of eyeshadows. There are definitely shades that look so similar. There was just no point in having two. Like these two, not that different. These two, not that different. These two, same story here. And also this colorful corner. Now, I know that this was intended to be the only palette you ever need and all of Jaclyn Hill's favorite colors and all of that. However, personally, if I'm going to do a colorful look, I just don't ever use these because I have a collection of rainbow eyeshadows that I go to for colorful looks. So I've used all these like once, and then I never went back to them because to me, this is a neutral palette. So when I want a neutral look, particularly a warm neutral look, I do go to this palette and I actually really enjoy it. You know, so I think if they had cut out a few of these dupes, gotten rid of these colorful shades that personally I just don't think were necessary, except for people that, yeah, this is your only palette, that makes sense, but for a lot of us, it's not. So those are my opinions. Basically, they could have just cut out some shades, made it smaller, and it also would have just been so much easier to use. When I use this palette, I feel like I don't even know where to put it or what to do with it. But the formula is great, which is why I do enjoy using it and keeping it around. The next one is a palette that a lot of people actually did not like. And I do like this palette. This is the Mini Lila by Natasha Denona. This has been on clearance at Sephora for a while now for only $12. And that's when I bought it. I bought it for only $12 at Sephora. Now, I actually do like the quality, and a lot of people have a quality issue with this, but personally, I think that that is good. I have no issues blending these out or whatnot. My issue is just the color selection is a little bit odd. I think, you know, obviously the full-size Lila palette is very purple and beautiful, so I totally get, obviously, these three shades. Now, my issue with these is these two, like purpley mattes, they're not really that different on the eye. This one pulls a bit more burgundy and this is more purple, but on the eye, they're really not that different. And then you have these two extremely neutral shades over here. I don't know. To me, that just seems a little bit odd. It would not have been my selection. If I were to have, you know, created this palette, I would have probably chosen like a lighter purple over here, like a lighter purple shimmer, and then, you know, maybe leave this neutral brown, or you could have done like a lighter matte purple. That's probably what I would have done. I think if you're gonna do a purple palette, just do a purple palette is my opinion. You know, I know a lot of people may not feel that way, and a lot of people like to have these neutral colors to kind of ground the look so that it's not full on purple in your face. But yeah, I enjoy the quality, but I think the color selection to me didn't quite make sense. The next one, I want to talk about one of these Fenty Snap Shadows. And I know that I've talked about these before, and I said I didn't like them a whole lot, but I've used them more, and actually I do like them. The formula is good. It's just, I wouldn't call it amazing for what you're getting. It's such a small little 6-pan palette, and for $25, I just think you can get more bang for your buck, honestly. But the formula is good, and I really have no issues with that. My only gripe with this palette is these two shades right there. these kind of taupey shimmers. On the eye, they look nearly identical. And I guess I just don't understand why you would make such a small curated palette and then have two shades that are so similar. I just find that a little bit unusual. I think it would have been a better palette if one of these were a light matte purple, and then it would have kind of gone with this whole thing. I love that this is a more cool tone palette. I love these shades here. This is really good. I mean, I really do enjoy it. I just don't know why you'd put two shades that are so similar in a tiny little palette. I want to talk about two ColourPop palettes, and I know that I mentioned both of these criticisms in my ranking my ColourPop palettes video. I will leave that in the description box if you do want to see that. This one is the Mint to Be, and I've done a whole review and tutorial on this. I really love this palette, and I think if you want minty eyeshadows, this is the one to go for. But I've mentioned before, my issue is the lack of depth. This shade and this shade, they look like they're a little bit darker, but on the eyes, they're really not. They're not as dark as they look in the pan, and they're a bit on the sheer side. And so I think this would have been better if they had chosen like a much darker green or much darker teal. And I think that would have gone very well. And then I think you could do a variety of looks and kind of smoke it out a little bit. I mean, pretty much every look I do with this palette looks about the same, you know? So this is one I really do like, but I like to combine it with other palettes just because on its own, it's a little too monochromatic, I guess, which obviously the point of it is to be monochromatic. But, you know, I think you have to do a little bit more variety, in my opinion, to be able to get more use out of a monochromatic palette. So I just think, yeah, a couple darker mattes really could have taken this a long way. Then we have the Sweet Talk palette, and I talked about this in that ranking ColourPop video too. A couple of issues with this. So I did remove the glitter shades because those irritated my eyes, and I know that other people have had that problem, but some people really do like the ColourPop glitter shades, so that tends to be kind of like a 50-50 split on how people feel about that. Also, this Super Shock, it's not that great. There's not a lot of pigment to it. And then these two matte shades, again, on the eye, those look nearly identical. I mean, this is just a hair darker than this one. So that's kind of my issue. But, you know, overall, I mean, the rest of the palette is great. And I really do enjoy the other matte shades. And this shimmer here is very beautiful. And I love the ColourPop formula. But yeah, I think the Super Shock and the glitters, for me, those were a miss. But I know that a lot of people do really like those. You know, it's obviously just a personal preference type thing. But this whole two eyeshadows that look the same in a palette, that really bothers me. That's probably... I'm going to say that's probably my biggest pet peeve. I just don't know why companies do that. And I think that's the problem, is you kind of look at a palette, at first glance, you may not notice that. And I really didn't notice that, and I didn't hear anybody mention that until I got the palette in my face and I'm looking at it, you know, and then I kind of see that. And plus, once you put it on the eyes too, things look a little bit different on the eye than they do in a swatch. So overall, I still like this palette, but I definitely think it could have been improved. Alrighty, two palettes left, and this one, I know I've talked about this too. This is the Hank and Henry Living in Color. This was in BoxyCharm, and I actually love the quality of this palette, and I think the shadows are beautiful. The selection is great. I have no actual issues with the actual product. My issue is the packaging. I mean, why is this so thick? I don't understand. There's no way these eyeshadow pans are going all the way to the back of this. I highly doubt it. I mean, I haven't checked, so I can't say for certain, but I just think that's so weird. And I know a lot of people also don't like this layout. It doesn't bother me as much. You know, it's a little different. You know, I don't really have other palettes where the eyeshadows are kind of turned like this. I don't mind that as much, but I know that that does bother a lot of people. But yeah, it's just... why is the packaging so thick? I don't know. That's really my only thought on this. Alrighty, and last up is the Huda Rich Nudes palette. And I know people love these, and people love the Huda eyeshadow formula. I do like this. I know I talked about this in my ranking my eyeshadow palettes video. This color story is so beautiful. I love the burgundies and the dark purple. It is so nice. And I love how compact it is, and the packaging is beautiful. I mean, there is so much going on with this palette that I love, but I only have one issue with it, and that is some of these shimmers, particularly this one, and this one. This one, not as much, but they get so much fallout throughout the day. And that's what bothers me. And now I do use a wet brush with these. And I have a lot of eyeshadows that do get fallout throughout the day, but if I use a wet brush, it keeps it from happening. But this one, even with a wet brush, hours later, I'll still get a few shimmers down here. And I just don't like that. I think it kind of makes my makeup look a little bit messy throughout the day, and I just don't enjoy that. And I do know that other people have said that about the Huda formula, where they get fallout throughout the day despite using glitter glue or wet brush and all of that. So it's really kind of a bummer. I mean, I really think the mattes are beautiful. The color selection is beautiful. Like I said, I just really do enjoy this palette, except for that. Yeah, particularly these two eyeshadows do that. So that's kind of a bummer, and I know people are kind of hit or miss on the Huda formula, and I've heard other people say that exact same thing, but then other people think it's amazing. So, you know, again, I'm sure it's a personal preference and everybody does their makeup application differently, maybe using different brushes or whatnot, but I like this palette and I am going to keep it. I do enjoy it, but yeah, particularly those two eyeshadows, I'm just kind of hesitant to use them now because I know what's going to happen when I use them. Well, that is it for my analysis on these eyeshadow palettes. I do like these palettes. I just think a little bit more could have been done to make them just a little bit better. You know, let us know what you think. What are some of your pet peeves when it comes to eyeshadow palettes? I'm very, very curious. Obviously, I don't enjoy repeat shades. That's probably my #1. But yeah, that is it for this video. Let us know what you think, and thank you so much for watching.